All right, so today we are going to record a session which is going to show, for transaction coordinator purpose, what are some of the steps and how to manage it through a template. So this is the template we use, which what we need to do is basically once an offer is accepted, which means now it became a contract, we are going to take the contract, which is the residential purchase agreement signed by both buyers and the seller. From that, we are going to take some of these dates. One is going to be the contract date, and contract date is the day after the seller has signed the offer, it has been sent to us. So maybe if it is signed at 11 p.m. on one day, but we only received it on the next day, that next day becomes really the. So the how to find this is basically, let's go look at a contract. So this is a signed contract. If we go towards the last pages of this, about 14. So this is the seller, for example. So if you see, the seller has signed on the day of 4/17. So this is the date that goes in that field. So we put that date here. So let's just assume whatever the date is right now. So 5/10, that's fine. So that's the first date that goes. The second date is how many days of inspection contingencies are there. So the way to find that is we go back to that same document, RPA, section 14B. Let's go to that. So if this is 31, we go to 14B, which is this. In 14B, you will see buyer has 17 days or 0 days. So this is all we need to read, how many days they have. So if it is 0, we just go and put 0. If it is 7, we just go put 7. If there is nothing, then that means it's automatically 17. So we come here and we make it. So let's just leave it as 7 because we want to see some with contingencies. Similarly, we go and check if there is any loan contingency or not and how many days. And for that, we need to go to the same document in section 3J. So let's switch to that. We are going to go to 3J. I'm scrolling up to go to 3J. So 3J is here. If you look at 3J3, so within 21 days or how many days, if there is any loan contingency, then we'll put that number of days there, either 21 or the number that is put here. Now, if the section 4 is checked, which says no loan contingency, then it automatically becomes 0. Okay, so if there's no loan contingency, we mark 0. Right now we'll keep it at 14. And then similarly, appraisal contingency will be found in 3I, 12, 3I, RPA 3I, which is right here. Appraisal contingency and removal. So here we have to see whether appraisal is or is not. So if this box is checked, that means there is no appraisal contingency. It is not contingent upon written appraisal. If this box was not checked, then this number of days, 17 or whatever is populated here, will become the number of days for appraisal contingency. So accordingly, if it is checked, then we make it 0. Otherwise, the number between this or this. So for time being, we are going to keep it at 12. And then maximum contingency period, you don't need to put this. This just automatically calculates it between the three of these. It will pick the number that is highest. So for example, if we were to change it to, let's say 5, this will automatically change to whichever is the highest number. Okay, so that's that. And then close of escrow period. This is something, so this don't change. Close of escrow period is something that we find from the RPA section 1D. How many days is the close of escrow period, which can be found right here. So this is in the section 1D. This is the beginning of the contract. So section 1D. So here it is 30. So we can go back and put 30 here. Now sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes there may not be number of days, rather there will be date here. So we can ideally put, I'll have to figure it out how to do that. I'm not prepared for it. So anyway, so that is, then another thing to look at is how many days to deposit the EMD or earnest money deposit, and that's in 3A, RPA 3A, and that is right here. 3A. So here, this is what dictates that if this is populated in 3A1 within one business day, so it becomes 1. If nothing was populated here, then by default it is three business days. But nowadays everyone's putting 1 business day. So we're going to leave that as 1. Now, so that's what we collect from the contract. Now, since we were looking at a contract, I'm going to tell you one more important piece. This date is a very important date. This is not the date of the contract. It's the date of writing the offer, the day this offer was prepared, not when it was signed. But in all following documents related to this contract, this is the date that is referenced. It says the RPA or purchase agreement dated this date. Okay, so that is why this date becomes really important as well. So we try to put a date on the day that we are actually preparing the offer. This date also comes in handy. Then we're going to come back and look at how to prepare offers later. But right now we're going to follow this transaction sheet. So what happens is once we put this date from the contract, let's say today I were to put a date of 4/23/2018. Now, if you watch the dates below that are around here, this is going to automatically calculate based on the numbers that we have entered here. I'm just putting the contract date. It's going to take all of these other dates and recalculate when all of these things will happen. So what it says is because we had the 1 day for earnest money deposit, EMD should be deposited by 4/24, which is 1 day after. And this date basically says that when should you really follow up that this task gets done on the day it is due. And therefore it says that what you should do is send an email to the buyers and follow up that it is done. And here is a template that you can use and customize it to send it to the buyers. That's one. Another task is apply for a loan. So here it says again, based on when it was accepted, they should really just apply for the loan almost right away. You should remind them about this, and this is the template that you send it. Now, a lot of times it doesn't hurt to kind of combine these two and send it right away because they're due on the same day. Okay. And then there is some introduction required. You will be dealing with the lenders, you'll be dealing with the sellers, you'll be dealing with the seller's agent's transaction coordinator, maybe the escrow company. So it's a good idea to also introduce yourself once we are in contract to all these other parties. And this is template that can be customized based on who the transaction coordinator is. Then there is acceptance acknowledgement. This is basically once the seller signs the contract, then buyer is required to acknowledge that they have received the signed contract, and there is an initial that needs to be done in this section of the purchase agreement, so that we can do it through DocuSign. Similarly, the next task is schedule inspections. So in this case, we have said that there are inspection contingencies, and therefore it is calculating the date and saying that by this date we should have the inspections done, and by this date we should make sure that we have scheduled and called and those kind of things. So this is what it's saying. Now, if this were 0, I just am curious to see what it does. It still calculates some date and tells you that by this day you need to schedule inspections, but if it is 0, we don't need to do any inspections. So this task will become not important. Now, one of the reasons why we are going through this is this date, right? The task due date. Let's say we come to know on 23rd that we got in contract. Now you will have these dates on 23rd, 24th, 24th, another 24th, 25th, 29th. You have to do these things. So very first thing you do is put reminders in your calendar so that it reminds you to get these things done. And however way you feel comfortable, you want to be reminded 2 days before, 1 day before, or the same day. That's your choice. But the idea is to remind yourself, put a reminder for yourself to get these things done. Okay, let's go back to schedule inspections. Okay, so if there is no contingencies, then no need to worry about it. What you can do is you can come back and mark this as NA for that particular transaction. You're going to make copy of this template for each transaction. So that becomes particular to, let's say, 123 Main Street for Tom, the buyer. So that will be his file. So you can mark it not applicable or something like that, not applicable here. Right. Then forms to the lender. Lender needs to receive certain forms from the transaction. So that needs to be done by the 24th, like it says, one day after. And here is a way to the template here. And it can all be customized, based on how you like. Check for disclosures. Now we need to make sure that all of these disclosures are either provided by the seller. If they're not provided by the seller, we are following up and trying to get it from them, or many times we are preparing some of these. And this is going to be in line with the office checklist that we have. This may not be enough, but we're just going to follow the checklist of those 27 or how many ever documents that are needed. All right, the next task is, okay, so it kind of follows, prepare the disclosures, and there are some tasks. Sign the disclosures by these dates. So it looks like pretty much once we get in contract, we start to do these things. Respond to inspection contingency. Now, since it said that we have inspection contingency, and I'm going to change this back to 7 days. It says that we need to respond back to the sellers or the seller's agent by that time. So here you're going to basically remind me, hey, what is happening with the contingency? What are, just so you know, you need to remove this kind of thing. Similarly, appraisal needs to be done by that day. So here we are pretty much just following up if it is not scheduled already. If you just figure out somehow that yes, the inspection, the schedule, appraisal is scheduled, then not much to do. But if it's, you just want to make sure that it's done, because the appraiser is supposed to call us and get it scheduled. And then if there is a loan contingency, then we are following up. Now, in most cases, you're going to tell me to follow up with the lender until you start communicating with lenders as well. And then removal of final contingency, and that is probably that based on the dates that we put up there. So again, you're pretty much reminding me to get that done. And then transaction point, create a transaction point entry and upload all files to transaction point. Create a transaction data sheet that goes to Mona for her to create the demand, and then order home warranty. This is a video that is already exists, so we can watch that. And then net sheet is not that important task. This is like an optional task, not required. And sign off needs to be scheduled. So these are some things that you're pretty much asking me to make sure that they are being done. If there is a rent back, this task will be applicable. So when you read the notes section, that will give you an idea. But let's say if you need to ask me questions specifically about these, then let me know. And then there are these, we need to send, we need to remind them that they need to do, but also send them documents telling them who they can contact to change all of this. And then I have to send you that as well. And then schedule final walkthrough, schedule keys handover. So these are primarily the tasks. And again, transactions can be unique. They could have different tasks, but this is generically covering a lot of transactions, variety of transactions. So we're going to pause the video here so that it remains short, and then we will maybe take some questions. 13 minutes.